there will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Bitcoin is punk rock. Deal with it.
You split, we bankrupt you.
Do you use Lightning wallets to pay for things or not?
No.
Bitcoin Cash would be seen as more of a threat to the United States hegemony than Bitcoin.
Miles Town, what's your favorite kind of money?
Bitcoin Cash.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 49, Narrative War and Supply Chains, feat Nick Cornell. Today is Wednesday, the 8th of June, 2022. I'm Jeremy. Jet is producing, as always. That one's for the YouTube commenters. And guest today is Nick Cornell, who is a RBTC regular. He described himself to me just before as just some guy, and loves Bitcoin Cash. And he's going to tell us about how the world supply chains are all completely fucked at the moment. Hopefully, because that's an industry I don't know much about. So yeah, welcome to the show, Nick. How'd you get into Bitcoin?
Thanks for having me, guys. I got into Bitcoin. I've been in crypto since 2017, but with the pandemic, it kind of gave me some extra time to really dive into what Bitcoin is, and it allowed me kind of to do my own research. And I kind of saw through the narrative bullshit that you see happening with Bitcoin and the narrative they were trying to push. I started doing my own research, and that led me to the RBTC subreddit, and went down the rabbit hole from there. And now I'm on the podcast. So here we are.
One thing leads to another, and it's it's a very weird, community, that one on RBTC, because it is so hardcore and it's so sort of inside baseball. Like the whole thing, I often feel when you just, I don't know, it kind of attracts people who like it that way, right? The people come in and they have a couple of questions about crypto, and you get very good answers, but I think it's a bit bewildering for a lot of new users when they come in and they ask some sort of question like, oh, what does my wallet seed phrase mean, or something like that, and they'll get this combo answers where it's really detailed and in depth, but it's also like, and you also need to know that Bitcoin is a scam and Bitcoin Cash is the true one. Yeah. And there's kind of this whole underlying BCH. And then it's, why is this subreddit called RBTC when everybody loves Bitcoin Cash? And why is the header green? And then I've got now the link that I just copy paste to them from the FAQ that explains it all. And yeah, it's just a very interesting subreddit. So anybody who's going on reddit.com/r/BTC, make sure you download the Reddit Enhancement Suite extension, because that will help you figure out who's legit and who's not, because otherwise, yeah, it's just a mess basically.
Lots of bots, lots of misinformation, and I mean that's anywhere on the internet, but especially around Bitcoin. So finding the RBTC guys, it's like shining a light. And we all just want to find the truth and the path to the global reserve currency of the world, what Bitcoin started out as. And yeah, it's sad to see the manipulation, but if you do your own research, it all kind of adds up and makes sense in the global scheme of things.
Do you think we're getting there? Are we slowly because I sort of feel it's sort of a one-way journey towards the truth, basically, where people start off hating crypto or not knowing anything about it, and then they learn, okay, it can have some value, and then they learn, okay, there's a community, and then they learn, okay, there's all these different scams, and then and people move along at their own pace, especially some of the very high profile people. It's very interesting to watch, like Elon Musk has been a classic, or Michael Saylor, or any of these other sort of talking heads. They might spend years, a lot of these BTC influencers, they literally spend years in the kind of third last or second last step of like, oh yeah, Bitcoin is great and everything, and just at some point they're going to get over that hurdle. But it's kind of a one-way transition, right? People don't find RBTC and then go back to Bitcoin. They just don't do it.
No, they do not.
So in that sense, we have inevitability on our side. That's how I feel about
Well,
it.
and
All
that's
right. Yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say that's the beauty of the community. Like we don't want the bullshit narrative. We want the truth. We want the real thing. And so yeah, once you get green pilled, if you will, you don't go back. I mean, you see through the lies, and it's hard for me to. I mean, I own a little bit of Bitcoin, but it's hard to go back and trust that whole community because you see all the lies and deception that's going on, and then here we are today with. I mean, we'll get into the whole pandemic and everything that's going on with the supply chains. And it's all just a charade to kind of push the narrative. They bought their tickets and they got on the train, and some of them are never getting off. Unfortunately, they made their bed and they're laying in it.
Yeah, but we don't need everyone. That's what gives me hope. It's really kind of comes down to just an intolerant minority. We've talked about a bunch on this show, right? But even as much as 5 or 10 million people worldwide who are actually genuinely plugged into the BCH economy and actually transacting and trading with it, that is more than enough to start an economic sort of vortex that will just suck in everything else through economic reality. So we don't need to get to 7 billion. The last 6.5 billion come for free, basically. So it's there's a lot of hazy there's a lot of smoke and a lot of misdirection, but slowly just that foundation of people is just building up step by step, and that's kind of what it's all about, I guess. So all right, price today, we've got to talk about it. Crypto markets not doing much was my headline. $185.57. BCH still in the sort of bear market grind down. One BTC buys 169 BCH. BTC was just having a particularly good day today. That's a little bit up. I would guess you're not a big price is everything type of guy. Most people tend not to be in Bitcoin Cash. But tell us, how do you manage volatility? Do you speculate? Do you have a bunch of different coins? Is it just Bitcoin Cash? How do you ride the markets?
Majority of my portfolio is Bitcoin Cash, and I've got some VeChain as well. But I mean, I don't see price as an issue right now because we haven't hit market adoption. We haven't. I mean, it's not mainstream. It's not. It's not Bitcoin in terms of the pedestal that's on. So once we get to that point, I mean, yeah, when we go from 69 grand like Bitcoin did down to 30 grand. That's a huge swing, but I mean, we're still relatively unknown, and the people that are using it, you can use Bitcoin Cash smartly to where you're not going to lose money. You convert your fiat to Bitcoin Cash and spend it instantly, and there's no risk to the user as far as losing out on those gains. And that's how I see Bitcoin Cash growing. Is you start doing that, people converting and spending and using as it's supposed to be. And not this whole hodl mentality where you're buying and amassing and hoping for the price to go up. I mean, I think the price of Bitcoin Cash is going to go up, and that's why I have it in my portfolio. But it's not a factor for me. I'm not looking to cash out today and go buy a house. I'm not going to miss my car payment because Bitcoin Cash goes to, even if it goes to $1, I'm just going to have a job. I'm going to keep buying some. So no, it doesn't reflect me. And the whole misconception on market cap really kind of drives me nuts because people look at the market cap and go, Bitcoin's got an $800 billion market cap. But that doesn't mean $800 billion is actually in Bitcoin. That just means, the price multiplied by the supply. And it's just a huge misconception. So I think I don't measure the success of a blockchain based on what the price on a given day. I measure it on the utility, and that's what I invest in. And that's what led me to here. That's why I own Bitcoin Cash. It's because of the utility, not the price.
Yeah, it's certainly a bit of a trap, I think, for people, because on one hand, okay, everyone uses the CoinMarketCap rankings. It is, in some sense, the best we've got. But on the other hand, yeah, you're right. People don't really understand the dynamics of price being set on the margin, right? So 800 billion, that doesn't mean there's $800 billion. In fact, $100,000 of people could sell. The market price could plummet if the market's within that day, and then bam, there's your 200 billion wiped out with just a small amount of capital. Of course, it works in both directions, which is why crypto can be so immensely, bullish at times as well too. But people just people don't have a good sense of how much real value is accruing in any of these things. And I guess that's why it's also helpful to look at some of the blockchain metrics. So that's the next one, which we always look at, which is BCH transactions have been a bit wild this week, or in the last couple of weeks. It was chugging along at 50K, then down to about 30K, then rocketed up to 150K, and then back now in the 40K range. So it seems that whatever is going on over the last 6 months, it seems between 30 and 50,000 transactions per day is genuinely what the BCH community is using, that there is that much activity. I've sort of personally noticed that I think that the further back you go, the more of it sort of was driven a lot by noise.cash and those tips. But just in my own anecdotal observation, as time goes on, you're seeing more and more the rise of, if you watch any of those transaction visualizers, of $5 payments, $10 payments, $100 payments. They're starting to get in the mix more and more, and a few of those 10-cent ones are kind of dropping out. I don't think those are related, but that just seems to be what's happening. Do you follow the transaction stats or any blockchain metrics to get a sense of the utility, or do you just look around you?
No, I definitely look at the transactions because that directly correlates to the usage of the coin and the blockchain. It would be worrying if we were on a downward trend to zero, but we're not. I mean, we obviously have just looking at the chart, we have a consistent usage for the last 5 years, going all the way back to 2017. So people sit here and say, oh, Bitcoin Cash is dead. Well, I mean, 40,000 people or 40,000 transactions says differently. I mean, that's not nothing. And then you look at, Bitcoin, yes, there's a lot more transactions, but I mean, think about the margin trading that's going on with Bitcoin, the shorting that's going on with Bitcoin. It's not everything, but it is a good, clear picture. And to me, I mean, 40,000 transactions is a lot. That's definitely a healthy community. That's not nothing. If one person dies tomorrow, we're not going to zero. So no, to me, it's healthy.
Yeah. And it is, I think that's why I'm really looking forward to if there's some more physical events starting up. And I've seen already a lot of people are so hyped for this Bitcoin Cash, convention might be happening in St. Martin's in November, because that will just be an example of putting all the people doing those transactions and stuff into one place where you can actually see it, because it's a bit disconnected if everybody's just in their individual little place. Okay, they're making some transactions, they're buying on purse, or even if they have local merchants where they trade a little bit, you hear some of the people, like even who are in those cities with heavy adoption, talking about it's actually amazing when you're at a shop and you've just paid in Bitcoin Cash, and then you're sitting down, you're drinking a coffee, and the next person pays in Bitcoin Cash too, and you can actually see the economy working in front of you, right? And I think, the community definitely needs a bit of that, because being dispersed, it doesn't viscerally impact people as much as kind of it hopefully will once we have a bit more. Even the merchant adoption videos, it's still just one person at a time, rather than seeing like, look, here's 20 people and they just ding 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 ding, they all paid in Bitcoin Cash. That network effect element of getting everyone in the same place. And then we've got go on.
I was just gonna say the Caribbean, what's happening in St. Martin with Roger and everything that's going on down there. I mean, I see that as the real proving ground for Bitcoin Cash. I've been to the Caribbean islands. I haven't been to St. Martin in a while, definitely before Bitcoin Cash, but I'd love to go back and see what it is now and spend some Bitcoin Cash and just see how the market actually works. Because I mean, in my daily life, living in the States, not a lot of people accept Bitcoin Cash. There's ways to get around it, but it's still much easier to use the legacy banking system. And eventually, the goal is to get away from that and get off that. And that's why, I'm buying into Bitcoin Cash now, is to eventually get off, because I see that as the future. I don't want to be swiping my credit card or debit card the rest of my life. I don't think my kids will. I don't think they're going to be in the same situation that we're in. So it's cool to be on this podcast and be able to talk about it with you guys. And I mean, because like you said, I see this as a history. We're really laying the foundation for the future.
Yeah, and I think the whole St. Martin and St. Kitts phenomenon, I don't think the broader market is really reasoning through that appropriately, because I've had several times, both on this show and definitely when I meet people in person who really are into Bitcoin BTC, and we kind of have this weird conversation where I say, look, Bitcoin, it's not working. It just isn't. It's not spreading. It's not taking off everywhere. You don't go to a shop and see people paying with Bitcoin BTC. Do you understand that wasn't the idea? That's not an economy, right? And they say, no, but it's happening in El Salvador. And I haven't been to El Salvador, and maybe they haven't been to El Salvador. So it's hard between this, or maybe they have been to El Salvador, and maybe they made a couple of transactions on Bitcoin Beach and they say it was great, right? We've had, examples of that on the show. I'm not saying that it literally never happens, that there aren't people paying with, Bitcoin or Lightning Network in El Salvador. I'm sure it does happen, and there's some kind of an economy going on there. But on the other hand, sort of objective reports also kind of tend to say, yeah, but there's also a lot of problems. And it seems fairly clear that by now, over more than a year or whatever since the whole Bitcoin law, that it hasn't just taken off and gone viral in the El Salvador population, right? And so then you say, yeah, but then Bitcoin Cash has these islands in St. Martin and St. Kitts, or the Bitcoin Cash city, and then for them, it's the opposite case, where they can just sort of write that off as, yeah, okay, maybe a couple people are doing it, or maybe whatever. And I haven't been to either, so I'm just going off my analysis of what I can judge from the videos and stuff that I've seen. But it truly seems to be a big difference in how widespread the acceptance is, how many locals are using it, the fact that it's all voluntary, the fact that and you see there's people in the Bitcoin Cash community who are known for going out and proselytizing to these places and having to support them, and they say, look, these are the problems we're having and this is what we need to fix. You don't really see that in the Bitcoin BTC community. How much chatter is there in there about, oh guys, my merchants are really having these struggles?
It doesn't exist. It's, and this, we'll dig into this later in the podcast, but no, it's all a controlled narrative. There's a reason that they're pushing on El Salvador. There's a reason it's not mainstream in the United States. They're trying to use El Salvador as this golden egg, the answer to Bitcoin. See, it works over here. When in reality, I don't think El Salvador was, in my opinion, that broken before Bitcoin. They had a payment system that worked. They had an economy that worked. And so, in my opinion, I think El Salvador was kind of hijacked into Bitcoin, and kind of forced on the population to be used. And that's not the point of Bitcoin. It's not the point of a peer-to-peer cash system. It's not to control the population and force people. It's to allow people to have the choice in how they spend their money. If you still want to use dollars because you're an old school dude, use it. But Bitcoin has all these advantages to it. And so when you take the option away from them and say, hey, you have to use Bitcoin now, that's a dangerous road to go down. And they're going down it.
They're doing
so
it.
I can they're doing it.
We're finding out.
Yeah.
And I think that's shout out to Bitcoin Jason, who's just in the chat. He said 5 businesses onboarded today. That's amazing. And it's a case of, and that's another thing people don't appreciate too. The fact that the Bitcoin Cash community values and fights these battles means they get good at it, right? It's not easy to get a business on board. Anybody who has tried to do that, even getting a friend to accept it and pay them back for beers, can be a bit of a challenge. But an actual business where the owner is worried with a million other things, it's a rough battle. But I think the Bitcoin Cash community, they're working those muscles. That was the analogy people were using recently. They're just the community knowledge builds up as well too, because once you have people who have those skills and are well practiced in it, they can spread it on to other people. Look, this is the app we're using, this is the how you get past this objection, these are the tax laws in this area, this is how you, etc., etc. And so that's just this undercurrent of really important groundwork that needs to be laid to actually have a viral moment, or to have things kick off. And it doesn't happen if there's Max Kaiser and a couple people in El Salvador with one Lightning Network merchant. It just doesn't happen like that. So
no, yeah. Well, and I want to give a shout out to all the guys that are onboarding people out there, because like you said, it's not easy to do. And I think that's another leg up that we have over Bitcoin. We have these great people that can communicate the benefits of Bitcoin, and not in a deceptive way. We're not trying to trick anybody. If you choose not to use it, you choose not to use it, but we'll show you the benefits. And I mean, that's why we're all here today, is it makes sense to us and we think it's great. But we have these people in our community that go out and do this work, and you don't see that in Bitcoin. You see the crypto bros that they want the price to go up. They all want to buy Lambos. That's their goal. Their goal is just to get rich. They don't give a shit whether Walmart accepts Bitcoin or not. They don't care about that. They only care if it's invested into the interest of raising the price. Versus us, we really just want to spread the adoption and spread people using it. So shout out to everybody that's doing that, because that's really what's building the community. And without them, we'd have a much larger uphill battle. So shout out to all of them.
It's also just a community moat, basically, because the fact is that is hard work. And so you can't, even if you're another community, if you're Bitcoin BTC or you're any other crypto, and I'm going to launch my new crypto. Well, it's actually not that simple to get a bunch of people around the world going out and getting merchants on board. And then not only do you need to get them on board one time, you need to keep going back there. You need to keep supporting with it. You need to make sure they don't lose their keys. Then you need to make sure they've got some customers, and then you need to build a network effect, a cycle of those people you're paying into each other and building a bit of an economy. And that can be quite fragile, right? So it can get set back in, you get busy for a couple of weeks and you're not taking care of it. And it's like this whole ecosystem. But the point is, once it starts catching on and once it kicks off, then it sticks mega hard, because how is anybody else going to compete with that? What other crypto is going to come along and say, hey guys, you should switch to one? We're already using Bitcoin Cash. Everyone I know is using Bitcoin Cash. We've already out of fiat. So any argument that fiat sucks is already irrelevant to us. And there you go, right? So yeah, if we can create those hotspots.
I'd love to see somebody, two onboarders, one for Bitcoin, for BTC, one for BCH, go into a merchant and try to explain, and let the merchant decide. Let the merchant actually, use both, give them both, and see which one they like. I think that would be a very interesting perspective to have, because now it's out of the hands of the influencers. It's out of the hands of the people that are backing the coins, and let the people decide. And I mean, we both know that Bitcoin Cash is just vastly more versatile and utility wise than BTC. And that's what led me here. That's why I'm so gung-ho about this community, is we just have what Bitcoin doesn't. Bitcoin shot themselves in the foot, and seeing it, the reason that it's still popular is because we still have this shadow cast over us with the big price point of BTC. But once you actually break it down and start using it, you're like, why are we using this? Why am I using BTC? It doesn't make sense. And then you have to come up with this, layer 2 solution and say, well, we have these problems, but here's our solution to it. When the thing worked to begin with, like, we had a great thing going. That's why I got into crypto, was because of Bitcoin and the whole idea of the white paper. And we've strayed so far from that. So it'd be interesting to see a real world example of two people going in and displaying, hey, use Bitcoin, use BCH, and see what happens. And I think, we know how that will turn out, but it'd be interesting to show to everybody else. I think that'd be very powerful for people to see, and for other merchants. You can just kind of point to the video.
Well, that's right. I mean, maybe the BCH community should challenge the BTC community to that, but there's just not incentive on either side to do it, because we know we're going to wreck them, and or people are already busy actually doing it. And then the BTC side, they're not really interested in that, or they can just rationalize it away or whatever. And so, yeah, I think it's, even though I agree, it would be kind of an interesting video, there would just be enough ways for either side to write it off as, oh, but that particular merchant was already a plant or something. You know, it doesn't matter. The real world is going to tell if crypto adoption in the Caribbean just kicks off, and in El Salvador it doesn't. That'll just be the end of the story, basically, at scale. And eventually it just gets big enough that you can't hide it. But I don't know. There you go. So, all right. And we got our one other stat that we always look at, cent in USD. Yeah, really nothing super exciting going on here this week, but we check in on it every week. So basically the market hasn't been making any big moves. It's been kind of quiet. So next up, we have the breaking news. This only came out a couple of hours ago, actually. Senators unveil sweeping crypto regulation plan that would place ancillary assets under the CFTC. So this is in the United States, which is, I guess, a big deal because it's a sort of cultural leader in all this and has an enormous population, and particularly other countries are going to maybe look at this and copy it, or it shows a bit of a sea change in the attitude. But Senator Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming, Republican, and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat from New York, teamed up on this one. Both of them must be kind of a bit keen on the whole crypto thing, and they are now trying to put in this legislation. It's going to take a while, as these things always do, but the big headline here is, and I quote, "Their bill would liberate small-scale purchases of goods and services from the mire of tax implications by making it tax-free on transactions less than $200, potentially clearing a path for a cryptocurrency that acts more like a currency," end quote. So that's the BCH special right there, as the real world moves closer and closer to what's actually going on here and not just financial speculation. You know, stuff like de minimis taxation laws are a huge benefit to BCH. That solves the problem for so many people trying to onboard merchants, but it doesn't really do much for everybody trying to hodl on exchanges. And the other two couple of points about this proposed regulation was that it looks like they're going to be cracking down on stable coins a bit and checking up on their reserve assets, obviously in light of the Luna bust up and stuff. That makes sense. And I guess to me, it is good to see that those distinctions are being made, because if the actual cryptocurrencies and stable coins are in separate buckets, that's good, because if they kind of go nuts on regulating the stable coins, I don't really care. And if the free market is left with the free market currencies, then I think that's great. And there's also a bit here about the Commodities Future Trading Commission, the CFTC, getting more powers over these so-called ancillary assets, which would be Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatever is a bit more of like regulatory hot potato, whether it's a property or a currency or a commodity or whatever. But I think on average, it sounds like this is a bit more of a win if it's not a security. So I don't know. Any thoughts on all this? Yeah, you're the American.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, this is huge. Potentially being a tax-free transaction less than $200. I mean, that's not something that you hear in America today. Everything is taxed, and we'll get into the IMF and what they're trying to do. I mean, it all revolves around tax. So the fact that we've got senators coming forward and want to put forward a bill that would make transactions tax-free, I mean, that is absolutely huge, and acts more like a currency. I mean, that's right up our alley. That's why we got into all this thing, and so I'm interested to see how it plays out, because it does directly threaten the establishment, the United States, the government, the federal bank. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't think it'll be till 2023 that we actually see something signed and enacted. But the fact that we've got people that are elected officials in the United States standing up and saying this, I mean, that's not something we've seen before. So no, this is huge.
Yeah, I guess there's certainly an element that people can be cynical and say, okay, well, these politicians or whoever have just, they're sort of kind of jumping on the bandwagon, right? They can see that this is a bit of a rising tide, a bit of a populist thing, and they will want to get a slice of it. But I'm not too concerned about that, because that's exactly how it should work, right? If the people are all getting into it, then if the politicians jump on, okay, maybe a bit grubby, then maybe they're not the crypto anarchists of old or whatever. But it doesn't matter. If the job gets done, it gets done. And undoubtedly they've put some of their own cash into crypto, and so they think, look, let's try and make this work out, right? And that's fine. If it gets the job done, it gets it. I don't expect everyone in the world to be the most pure-hearted cryptocurrency adopter. The beauty of the technology is that people kind of get brought along for the ride, whether they're realizing it or not. So yeah, I guess I also think this is pretty good sign, pretty bullish sign for crypto.
Yeah, and I mean, this regulation leads to adoption. I mean, you have to have regulation for the big boys to come and play. There's still some skepticism around cryptocurrency and what it is. And I mean, I think most people have heard of Bitcoin now, but the fact that it's not regulated, I mean, there's still scams going on everywhere that we see with the whole Luna crash that we saw. And then, Tether, we all know the charade that they're playing there. Yeah. And I think that plays a lot into the price action that we're seeing with Bitcoin. When you have a money printer that is then able to then go and buy Bitcoin, that's obviously going to affect the price. And so I think we have to have regulation on the stable coins to be able to really move forward. And as long as Tether is still playing the game that they're playing, it makes it virtually impossible to move forward, because they have such a stranglehold of, what is it, 76 billion or something that they have in volume, or in market cap that's floating around out there. So it definitely needs to happen sooner rather than later. So I'm excited for the crash. I'm excited for Tether to come tumbling down. It's going to be a good day. I'm not, like I said, I'm not worried about price. I'm more worried about the utility and the adoption. And we have to get the dark entities out of the space to be able to move forward. And this is the start of that.
Yeah. Okay. Just a reminder again to all listeners that we could be in for several years of bear market. I'm not here selling you on BTC to 100K, go all in, mortgage your house, you guys got to be here for the long run. Okay. So just be a little financially conservative and make sure you're working hard on your career and stuff too. Don't just YOLO it all into a Bored Ape and call it a day, because that's not really going to work out for you. And I don't want to feel like anybody who's ever listened to this show ever got that vibe that's what crypto is about, right? Because that's so just gotta keep bringing it up.
People have to have, I mean, you're right, people have to further their careers. I mean, we're not on this podcast to get rich. We all have our own lives, and we have to produce GDP for your economy. You have to produce something. You can't just pull money out of nowhere. And if you are, you're either stealing it or doing something shady. So you have to produce something. You have to be valuable to the society, and then use that money that you earn to go invest in the things you want to invest in. But you have to have that backbone of a career of some kind of income that you're building on. People that are getting into crypto now, they just want to put $100 in and turn it into $1 million. Sorry to break it to you, man, but you're a decade late. That ship has sailed. The big boys are playing with the money now, and the only way to really do that is to produce a scam, produce some kind of Ponzi scheme or some kind of pyramid. I mean, it's too good to be true, like the whole Safe Moon thing that happened. It probably is. So you have to have that backing. So people listening, like, do yourself a favor and better yourself first. Don't bank on any of this to be your lifeline. We don't know if Bitcoin Cash is going to be worth $1 million a coin. We know the utility's there. We know it works. We think it's a great idea. But if you're listening to this and just you're YOLOing all of your life savings into the crypto market, that's not a good idea, in my opinion. You have to have that background. You have to have that solid ground to stand on to be able to be successful long term. We're not here to be millionaires tomorrow. we're here to make the world a better place, and you have to better yourself to bring the people along with you.
Absolutely. So take a long-term, time frame, earn some, spend some, get involved in the actual community, and make something valuable, whether it's in the crypto markets or not, because that's ultimately what's going to have value. Ryan asked in the chat, when Tether falls, I wonder what price I could buy BCH at. I mean, we'll see, but I think the hard floor for BCH maybe in the $50 to $100 range, but I think it would crash down kind of that low, but then a lot of other stuff would just keep falling like a rock kind of past it once it leveled out, because as we saw those 40,000 transactions a day, that would probably just keep ticking over, right? And everyone else would be finished.
Well, and price doesn't dictate the success of a community. So, I mean, even if Bitcoin Cash went to $1 and we had a market cap of 20 million bucks, that doesn't mean that we failed as a community. That just means there's, less demand trying to buy the coin right now per se, but that doesn't mean we failed. The utility is still there. Same as driving a car. If you're driving a car and your car value goes to zero, is your car worthless? No, your car is still useful. You're still using it to get around. You can't exchange it for the same value per se, but you're still able to use it and it's still useful. I mean, the point of a car is to get from point A to point B. And I kind of see currency as the same thing. It's a medium of exchange for services. You're exchanging services for value. And so, I mean, that would just increase the amount of Bitcoin Cash you have to send to buy a beer. But at the same time, it still works. There's nothing, Bitcoin Cash goes to $1 and it doesn't automatically stop working. It continues to work. The groundwork is there. So, I'm not really worried about the price. And to be honest, people that are listening, use this as a time to continue the dollar cost average, to continue to build, because that's the long-term goal here. We're not here to, if Bitcoin Cash goes to $100 tomorrow, we're not all canceling the podcast and shutting down and going home. We're still going to be here. And, I think that speaks volumes to the community too. We've seen the price go from, was it $1,400 that we got the all-time high last year. So I'm not worried about the price, and I don't think anybody else should be. But if you're sitting there every day, opening up your Bitcoin wallet and refreshing the price and getting depressed, maybe take a couple weeks off and just stop looking. Yeah, focus on life, man. It's bigger than just the price action that's sitting in your bank account.
All right, next one up, and on this theme actually as well too, is the Federal Reserve came out with some info on this. How many people do they think are actually paying for things with cryptocurrency? So last week we were talking about how many Bitcoin Cash users there are and trying to muddle through all the stats and get to the bottom of it. But according to this Federal Reserve 2021 report, 12% of US adults own cryptocurrency. I could sort of buy that. 11% as an investment. So that means about 37 million people out of 335 million in the US today. And about 2% purchase or spending it as a currency in that year. So that's about 6.7 million Americans in 2021. That sounds like a lot to me, but maybe across all the coins. The other point they had here was use as an investment was mostly by rich people, but use as a currency was mostly by the financially struggling or disconnected. So I've pulled this quote out of the report and I'm going to read, quote, "The financial profiles of those who use cryptocurrency for transactions, however, were quite different. Nearly 6 in 10 adults who used cryptocurrency for transactions had an income of less than $50,000. A far lower 24% of transactional users had an income of more than $100,000. Transactional cryptocurrency users also were less likely to have a bank account. 13% of those who use cryptocurrency for transactions lack a bank account, compared with 6% of adults who did not use cryptocurrency. Similarly, 27% of transactional cryptocurrency users did not have a credit card, exceeding the 17% of non-users without a credit card," end quote. So that's kind of quite confusing how they explained it, but essentially the idea is that maybe 60% of people using crypto were making less than 50 grand, and whereas people making over 100 grand, it was only 24% of all those people using it for transactions. And for people using crypto, they were roughly twice as likely to not have a bank account and to not have a credit card as well. So it's kind of that idea that the transactional element is bleeding in and providing that story that we're kind of trying to tell or create, of giving access to people who've been disconnected from traditional financial systems. And it seems that this does back it up, that is actually what's happening even in the US, where there is on average quite good infrastructure, right? So I found these stats really interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And recently we've seen the rise of online casinos, crypto casinos, and I really wonder how much of that is playing into this report. With 6 in 10 adults who use cryptocurrencies had income less than $50,000. A lot of these people that are using stake.com or Roobet or all these online gambling sites have popped up out of and that's a whole nother story to dig into. But I really wonder how much of that plays into this, because you have a whole bunch of 12 to 25-year-olds that are using VPNs that are gambling on these websites, and they exclusively use cryptocurrency on these websites. So I'm interested to see, there's probably not a report out there on it because of how shady the industry is, but to see, how many of the 6 of 10 adults that are using it that are less than $50,000 are because of those gambling sites. It's another use case for cryptocurrency, but it's also kind of deceptive because people are losing a lot of money and really just transferring it to these websites over fake gambling, and people think they can get rich getting on stake and spending $100 and hitting some slots. But it's very interesting to see, and these numbers are actually higher than I would have expected. Just being in the United States, not a lot of people use cryptocurrency, and the ones that do, I found it's really just as an investment. People are, the 40 and 50-year-old guys that I know that are getting into it, they see it as an investment, as a lifelong thing. So I can see them accumulating, but they're also not the ones gambling. They're using it as an investment. So the 2% that's purchasing and spending the currency, I think a lot of that has to do with the rise of online gambling that we're seeing. So it's interesting to see. It's definitely a positive. It's a lot more people than I expected. But yeah, very interesting.
Do you guys mind if I hop in here real quick?
No, get in there.
Because
you're so Canadian, you always have to ask on this show. hey guys.
So this is actually I remember we were looking at another stat where it was 2 in 5 people or something like that had a chance in, which I suppose is only, it's not that much. So I'm thinking a room of 100 people, right? I can imagine 11 of them being gung-ho about, look at my Doge, man, it's going to $1. And then I could also imagine, so when I look at these numbers and I see 2% for spending or purchases or spending as a currency, I get that gambling is part of that, but that seems like part of the investment crowd to me rather than I don't know what kind of risk this actually has, but I'm young and dumb. So I make less than $50,000 a year, right? And I'm through and through about the purchases and spending as a currency, and very much adamantly avoid the gambling side of things. But it also makes me want, so these numbers make sense intuitively to me, but it also matches the Pareto distribution a little bit, right? A fifth of the overall percentage of people are actually putting in the work to get adoption. And then I wonder too, if we could break that stat out further and be okay, what coins is that tiny percentage of people actually using? And I think we could see that kind of scatter down into, Dash and BCH and a couple different coins like that. Yeah, I don't know. This definitely makes sense to me though, and I think I'm kind of very softly arguing against the gambling being included in the purchases part of things.
Well, I mean, we have the answer of what you're talking about a little bit, because yeah, I agree. So let's take this as, according to the Fed, out of 100 people, 11 of them have some crypto in their Coinbase or whatever, and maybe 2 out of 100 people are actually using Purse.io, or they're going to, off to El Salvador to spend it there, or St. Martin, or whatever they're doing, right? But we know what that 2% is using very roughly from the BitPay stats that I don't know if we looked at them last week. We've looked at them a couple of times, but essentially it comes down to, at the moment, it's about 55% using BTC, and then about 10% or a little more using Litecoin, about the same using Ethereum. BCH is about 7 or 8%. Dash is like less than 1%. Monero is 0.0 something percent, and Tether and USDC kind of fill in the gaps, and maybe a little bit of Ripple, right?
And that's by transactional volume, right? Not like fiat amount?
Yes, that would be by transactional volume, yes.
Okay.
That's by number of transactions as a percentage. So
right.
Out of 100 transactions, 56 are in BTC maybe, right? And 6 or 7 are in BCH. But I'm a little bit sus on those BitPay stats, actually, because I feel like BitPay then added a bunch of KYC and stuff, and BCH people, I feel, have migrated onto alternatives. There's prompt.cash and a lot of the Bitcoin Cash register and different things like that, which might have used BitPay in the past for the Bitcoin Cash community. We're just building our own infrastructure. That's really what it comes down to. I think BCH is not going to show up on a lot of these kind of stats or coin aggregator metrics, or like if Coinbase, this is how many people are buying BCH. Well, will be smaller relative to other communities, because BCH will have a much higher percentage of people earning it directly, where they're just getting paid direct to the person. So Coinbase is not going to have oversight of that. So yeah, I definitely feel like BCH is going to be underrepresented on a lot of these coin aggregator type of metrics, but that's one rough guide anyway to what the real world looks like.
And just thinking about it though, do you think, like, okay, so if 60% of the 2% of people using it as currency
use BTC,
make less than 50,000 and are using BTC, like, that doesn't quite add up to me. Like,
yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's the only number I'm like, I don't know, that's a little fishy.
Well, to use Bitcoin today, use BTC today, with the high fees and the fee market they've created, I mean, you have to have large transactions. You have to be buying your car. You have to be buying something that is a large transaction. So yeah, you would think it'd be inverted. You would think less people will be, or the people who have made more than 100,000 would be a far higher percentage if they're using BTC, because they're using it for large transactions. But yeah, that's an interesting stat.
I mean, I think you've got to be a bit more reserved on that. It does somewhat make sense to me, because the fact is, I can see a large market of people who are Bitcoin believers and everything because you can get a transaction through on the BTC main chain for 30 cents or 50 cents. I mean, it's going to be unreliable. You're going to have to wait 6 hours. You're going to have to hope that you get lucky and the mempool price drops a bit and it doesn't get kicked out after 2 weeks and da. But I can see with those constraints that there are a lot of people with their node, they're hodling away and they buy a stack sats mug every once in a while, and they do it in Bitcoin BTC, and they'll pay 30 cents on their $20 transaction to be like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm part of the Bitcoin revolution. I can see that market. So that's why, and I can also see it being bigger than the BCH or the Dash community, for instance, just because those communities are so much smaller. Like, it's just, if your community is 100 times bigger, you only need a few people who are basically spending BTC for the internal status flex to make up that 60%. I don't know. People will pay $1 to say they paid in Bitcoin, basically.
Well, and that's actually kind of why I own some Bitcoin. I mean, one, because I want to diversify, but But two, I just for the fun of it, sometimes I'll send my Bitcoin between two of my wallets, and just to see what the actual transaction fee is going to be. And every time I've done it, it's been over $1. And I do that probably once or twice a month. Just and that's how I show people too. Like when I'm talking to people about Bitcoin Cash, it's like, well, here, you don't believe me. Like I have some right here. Let me send it to my other wallet, and I'll show you the difference. I'll show you like what it's going to cost to do, a $20 transaction. It's going to cost you $1.50. And why would you use that? I mean, that's more than Cash App. I mean, even if you want to do an instant Cash App transfer, they take like 1.5%. So you're talking 30 cents on a $20 transaction versus $1.50 for a Bitcoin transaction. Well, then why the hell am I going to use Bitcoin? And so that kind of opens the eyes for people when I show them, hey, I'll send some Bitcoin Cash to myself and it costs 1/10 of a cent. And then I'll turn around and send some Bitcoin to myself and it costs $1.50. And it's like, and then, then we get into the conversation of why it costs what it costs and get into the whole block size and everything that they've created the fee market out of. And so, yeah, it's, I don't know, it's pretty bad. Bitcoin has ruined themselves, and they're all in on this layer 2 Lightning Network thing. And it's it's not a good idea.
Speaking of telling people about the history, that's our next point actually, is I've titled this slide, "The Most Accurate Mainstream BCH News Ever?" ? Because there was this article, it came out, let's see here, May 31. So it was a bit over a week ago. And I was actually shocked when I read this, because we had on the podcast a couple of months ago, there was sort of it was when the Bitcoin conference was on, a couple of people came out with what is the difference between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash articles, just because I guess, I don't know, it was a bit unexplained really, but maybe a few people were confused and they wanted to know the difference. It was the zeitgeist, I don't know. But this one came out at the end of May, and it was called Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash. What's the difference and which is better? And it was really accurate. It was not there was still a couple of quibbles I would have had with it at the edges. It's not, and it's definitely not the Start Guide Bitcoin Cash podcast that I've written, which is a bit more sort of the BCH angle on how it all went down. But the main points were there about Satoshi originally created it as a digital cash. The community governance got into a bit of a shambles. The fees started rising. The community ended up splitting. The BTC side went with SegWit and thought they were going to fix all the scaling problems, but it kind of didn't work. And then the BCH side had the bigger blocks, but they lost the branding. And so then they're, a bit more off the radar for most people who don't know anything about this history. And the trade-offs being, in theory, decentralization and security and having the higher hash rate versus having the lower hash rate, and the being a direct transfer mechanism. And it was all there. And I was just blown away by that, because that is what we need. Like I was saying, 5 million people, once 5 million people know that history and pick Bitcoin Cash should come out on top, that'll be it, because the more people that know that history and the story and can explain it, it's an exponential, right? It's a very high barrier of information to get why Bitcoin Cash. Basically, you do need to know all this history and the trade-offs and all the logic and the fee market and blah blah blah. Like, there's a huge amount of prerequisite knowledge. But at the same time, as people are getting built up with that knowledge, then it spreads faster and faster to more people. And the sort of censorship element of hiding this all away over the last few years is coming apart at the seams. So I don't know. I was just blown away by this. Did you read this article, and what did you think of it?
Yeah, no, I did read it. It caught me by surprise as well, and I thought it was a very fair assessment of both coins, of both blockchains. I think it kind of lends credibility to us. I mean, you don't have to take our word for it. I mean, you had somebody at NASDAQ that's writing about this. Like, we're not bullshitting. I mean, we really want to get to the peer-to-peer cash system of the world. and to have someone, at NASDAQ write an article about it that sees through it. I mean, they're not a nobody. They have a due diligence to do to their subscribers. And so to have them come out and lay out the groundwork and say, these are the two different coins, this is what they do, make your own decision. I mean, that's exactly what we need. And that's exactly what led people to get on Bitcoin in the first place, was make your own decision about it. It's not Satoshi saying, hey, you have to join this. I mean, he even told people, if you don't get it, I don't have the time for you. Make your own decisions. And so to have them come out and lay it out, I mean, I think it's the first of many, especially when we going back to the bill that they're proposing in the Senate. You're going to see more of this because people are going to be doing their research into it. There's already a ton of articles in the past, but I think this does a lot of justice for the community to be able to lay out what the differences are. And at the very end, saying Bitcoin Cash is better for payments, because it is. I mean, that's the whole point of the reason that we're doing this. We don't want a fee market. We don't want to force people off to another solution to the problems that we created to begin with. And that's what BTC is doing.
Yeah, I found it really interesting as well too. On the weekend, I was at a party. There's a few crypto people there. We got into some good crypto chats, and I found it really interesting. Somebody said to me, you're the first Bitcoin Cash person I've ever met. And Bitcoin Cash has this very interesting dynamic where there's a large segment of people that don't know anything about Bitcoin Cash, and when you tell them about it, they're like, what is that coin? I've never heard of that. What is this? Kind of a bit confusing. There's another Bitcoin that are intuitively get it. And then there's also a huge segment of people like, I know Bitcoin Cash. I know these scammers. I know that they've got their big block talking points, and I know this, that, and the other that happened, but they're not anywhere. They're all just, so it's the Bitcoin Cash community is both very loud and also very under the radar at the same time. It's a very small but a ridiculously dedicated, clearly, community, and as a result, it just has a strange effect on people, because there's loads of people who are into Bitcoin, and they've got some friends that are into it and all this sort of stuff, and they've literally just never run into a person who's into Bitcoin Cash, and that being on the losing side of the block size war, that's really what it came down to, that the total BTC and BCH users has just been exploding, but as a percentage, the BCH size has been shrinking, perhaps until recently, as this kind of narrative train gets on, and now people are flooding into all the other coins as well too, so they're more likely to stumble on it that way with, I was in the Ethereum community, and then I was looking at this and that and Avalanche and whatever, and then maybe they find their way into Bitcoin Cash. I don't know, but it's very strange to see in real life how that smaller community size plays into the conversation, right? Because this kind of media attention is like agnostic to the size, right? This is an article about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, and there's 50% of the article on each. It doesn't matter if there's 10,000 times more BTC supporters in the world. Everybody reading this article is weighing it up 1-to-1, right? So I feel like that's the advantage. That's a subtle asymmetry, which means the PCH community is always in it, no matter what the size disparity is or the price disparity.
Yeah, no, we have a very resilient community of people, going back to the adopters and the people that are pushing, merchants onboarding. You just don't see that in Bitcoin. You don't see that in BTC. I keep saying Bitcoin, but BTC. You don't see that. People should do their local Walmart and saying, hey man, you need to get a Lightning node set up and start accepting payments, because it doesn't work. It's not a clean conversation. You can set up and make it work, but it's a lot of, you're jumping through a lot of hoops, and for why? And then you turn around and you look at the Bitcoin Cash community, and you don't have to jump through hoops. Set up a wallet, get some coins, and start spending them. And that's how it's meant to be. And I think it speaks volumes for the community. We haven't gone away. There's people that you're in it from 2017 are still in it. They're still promoting it. We're having the same discussion and talking points, and BTC doesn't have an answer for a lot of the things that we do. But the only answer is really to silence us and to say, Bcash is a scam. And it's like, well, how are we a scam, and how is BTC not a scam? if we're a scam, how big of a scam is BTC at the end of the day? Like, if you're gonna play that game, like, you have to look yourself in the mirror too and ask that question. And BTC doesn't stand up very well to that.
Yeah, Ryan says in the chat, crypto people I meet mostly know BCH is superior technologically. And I think that's also an interesting point, which is that as I was having this debate the other night, it was me and there was a BTC guy and then there was somebody else who was kind of more on the fence, right? They were just in the middle and they were just sort of weighing up both sides. They liked some other different coins. They weren't really specifically in an allegiance. And I think by now, I think the majority of crypto are big blockers, basically. Maybe they're not Bitcoin Cash, big blockers, but every other coin, Ethereum, Avalanche, Solana, or whatever, what coin is out there saying, we're going to restrict our block size and everyone's like, that is nonsense, right? You just, storage spaces have improved, hallelujah. And that's just the default. So when people dig into this a bit, the fact that Bitcoin Cash does not have a 1 megabyte block size religion just intuitively makes sense to a lot of people, even if they're not using Bitcoin Cash, they're not trading it, they're not invested in it or whatever. And they can sort of say, okay, well, maybe they don't have the branding or they don't have the momentum, or I haven't really seen enough from them to get excited. There could be a lot of reasons that they might be ambivalent about sort of jumping in or even contributing to the community, but they kind of get the concept. And if there was a lot of BCH momentum, I feel there's a lot of people that would just flood in, basically.
I got into a conversation on RBTC a couple days ago with somebody about the block size and about data. And what people don't realize, like, the data size is extremely relative to the technology and the hardware that you're using. I mean, I remember the days I grew up playing PlayStation, and we had those little 8 megabyte memory cards, and that would store an entire multiple game saves on there. And now 8 megabytes is nothing. I mean, we have terabyte Xboxes, and so it just goes to show that you're thinking in a frame of mind of what current technology can handle, and you're not lending the future any credit of what's going to be developed. I mean, data is extremely relative. We went to the moon with less data than I have on my phone. And so it's just kind of mind blowing to me that people are still having this argument that, the block size is going to get so big that you can't use it. Well, then we're going to create better technology. Humans don't sit back and say, oh, well, you know what, we hit that wall and, we're just going to stop. No, we're going to figure out a way to go around the wall or through the wall. And so just this mindset of, well, the Bitcoin Cash big blocks are just not sustainable, blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, where do you think the world data is going to go? Is it going to stay stagnant for the rest of the time? No, we're streaming in 4K and 8K, and we're doing virtual reality. Like, all that is massive amounts of data. And to sit back and say, well, you can't scale past 1 megabyte or the world can't use it. It's just, to me, that's mind blowing. The fact that you have that closed mindset of it's 1 megabyte or nothing. I mean, come on. I mean, in the future, we're going to have phones that are probably 100 terabytes or even larger. And it's not going to be overly expensive because that's going to be the norm. There's going to be competition and it's going to drive the price down, and it's all going to be affordable. I mean, a terabyte back when Bitcoin was created was probably thousands of dollars. And now you can get a terabyte solid state hard drive at Best Buy for $200. And so
even I've seen, some.
Probably less.
Crazy.
So, I mean, it's mind blowing to me that people, I mean, that's the hill that they're going to die on is, 1 megabyte
the hill they
blocks.
have to die on. That's the other thing as well that people don't really understand, or as time goes on, it's just so ingrained in there. Whether there was or wasn't any original logic, it's now the logic has become we're gonna die on this hill, right?
Man,
yeah.
Do you guys remember? Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, what can Bitcoin BTC do? What can they go back in reverse and say, okay, now we're gonna have 32 megabyte blocks? I mean, what would that do to the community? Because at that point, that's a win for Bitcoin Cash because we're already doing it. I mean, that to me is forcing the hand and them admitting, hey, we tried something and it didn't work. It's going to fail. And then people are going to look and say, well, Bitcoin Cash has been doing this the whole time. Like, we were right the whole time. This is the way forward. So I hope that happens. But I'm interested to see how that plays out in the market.
Did you guys ever play, like, I don't know, PS2 or GameCube or any of that? Do you remember, like...
Yeah, absolutely.
Like those first memory cards where I'm pretty sure 1 megabyte, and then they were 2, and then they were 8, and then they were 16, and then they were 32. And now, if you want to play, I think it's Warzone, it's like 100 gigabytes or 120 gigabytes. Yeah. Imagine if those game developers were like, we're never going to be able to go past this 2 megabyte memory card guy. Like, insane. I can't imagine the mentality that these people have.
Yeah, well, and maybe they should take some from their playbook. You don't need to cap your creativity at the amount of data. You want to create something you want to create, and whatever the data ends up being, that's what it is, and we'll figure out some hardware that makes it work. It's not the other way around. You don't develop something with a capped mindset. Like, you develop what you want to develop, and then make the hardware that makes it work.
I mean, in their defense, I will say that one of the big problems that I think the Bitcoin BTC community have, they're sort of in a bit of a trap of their own making, which is that they say, okay, big blocks is terrible or whatever, and then they have some examples that back up their theory. Ethereum fees are ultra high. Of course, that completely ignores that Bitcoin and Ethereum are not really directly comparable in terms of their data consumption or the all the smart contracts or the account model. And there's a lot of other reasons why Ethereum is having problems that have nothing to do with what would be the case on Bitcoin. And then they have Bitcoin SV, who are just spamming it out like nobody's business. And yes, there is a limit. As much as we're saying, obviously you can raise the limit. The point is you have to be able to justify the amount of actual economic activity. But if we were doing 32 megabyte blocks worth of actual peer-to-peer cash adoption, the economy of BCH would be going insane. People have no idea how. With that 40,000 transactions we were looking at, that would be like 4 million transactions a day or something. It would be ridiculous. And if those were all real people actually trading money, just it would be more than justified.
Well, that's transactions don't. I mean, that the beautiful thing about the blockchain and about Bitcoin is the transactions don't increase in size, the amount of data that they're using. Like, the transactions are, that's a static thing. And so it would be different if we're arguing, say, okay, at 32 megabytes, now a transaction, is a larger amount of data, but it's not. You're just fitting more of those transactions into that block. And so that kind of shoots down the narrative of big blocks are going to fail, because all we're doing is we're just filling the boat up more. We're allowing for a bigger boat. The people aren't getting bigger that are getting on that boat. They're the same people that are getting on the boat. So as we scale up, as the blockchain increases in size, the transactions are going to stay the same. And so, I think realistically, I mean, that's why Bitcoin's going to work long term, is that transactions are going to stay the same size, and we did in the smart contracts and all that, they'll have a larger size, but we're doing all that on a layer 2. And so I'm extremely bullish on it because of that. It'd be different if the transactions were going to, it's just like comparing it to video games. The new video games use much more data. So you have to have a much larger processor to process all that, versus, I mean, essentially what we're doing is we're now playing, we're still playing Pong on an Xbox X with a terabyte. And so it's the same game. We just have better hardware to process it.
You can have 10 million people playing Pong on one Xbox. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. It's people. Yeah, I think just people struggle to understand exponentials. Basically, that's my thing in life, is just exponentials and basic calculus. Whether gradients are increasing or decreasing. Just people don't understand how those things interact in the real world. They're too linear in their thinking. So the fact that BCH just has the benefit of all the innovation that is going on. It doesn't matter. BCH is just getting further ahead just by if we all stopped doing everything, we would still be getting better, just because the hardware manufacturers would be like, and we made some better storage devices, guys. We made a better Ethernet connection. Like the Bitcoin Cash community is essentially the entire computer hardware industry as well too. So it doesn't. Yeah, that's just another area that we're just quietly crushing away on that nobody even pays attention to. But anyway, that is what it is. Next topic. Let's talk about something positive instead of this BTC stuff. So this week there was this BCH Hangout Space #2 on Twitter. It was organized by Fiendish Crypto, and Sherry Yukar also was involved in the hosting. So a big, massive shout out to both of them because they've been doing a killer job, and these Twitter spaces are super valuable. It's just a different crowd. People just find them on Twitter and they kind of come in and maybe they just listen along for a bit, and then maybe they follow a couple of the people who are speaking and they sort of work their way into the community that way. So Fiendish Crypto organized this one whenever it was a couple of weeks ago, and it was like 1,900 listeners or something. I don't know. It just rocketed off on his first attempt. And he thought, okay, definitely, let's do another one. So this second one it didn't get to quite as many listeners. I think it was 400 or 500 people maybe, but it seems to be setting a precedent that this is going to be a regular thing. I really hope it is, because it's amazing. I was definitely listening to it. This one went for about 4 hours. The first hour was recorded and is available on YouTube. Everyone got kicked out after an hour because there was a bug, and the second hour didn't get, the second section didn't get recorded. So you're just going to have to take my word for what was said on that. But you can definitely go have a listen to it and get a flavor. And if you enjoy it, definitely follow Fiendish Crypto and pay attention, because I'm sure there'll be another one. It's, I think, usually Sunday nights. So the main things that seemed to come out of it was there was a lot of talk about merchant onboarding, which we were talking, but these different hotspots that are emerging, right? That there's India, there's is the latest one with Sunny Gahani, who's doing a killer job. There's the St. Martin's and St. Kitts in the Caribbean, Townsville in Australia, and Florida as well with Ryan Giffen. So BCH is just working away on these several different locations, and everybody's just getting in the call together and comparing their experiences and where things are kicking off, and constantly announcing we've got some new merchants here, new merchants there. And it just really seems to be building in hype and excitement. And the main problem that we need to address as a community seems to be this stuff about volatility, right? That crypto is always volatile, and for merchants, they feel that downside pain very, very hard, not only because a bear market tends to be kind of a long and grueling thing, but because they're not in it to gamble. They once they get paid, they want to pay their staff and pay their business expenses and come out with some profit. They don't want the whole thing to turn into the crypto casino, which is another thing that you don't really find out unless you are genuinely onboarding real merchants. So there's with some sort of chatter about, well, we can maybe line things up with stable coins. You can use Flex USD. Okay, they need to be better integrated into the wallets. There was a bunch about that. And there was also some stuff about AnyHedge, which I've talked about on this show a few times before, but it's this product that is being developed, and it's kind of been a long time coming, but I think hopefully it'll be worth the wait, right? And it will be very important because it's an on-chain way that you can have non-custodially locking amounts of money. So that essentially gives the BCH economy access to a stable coin that can't do a Terra Luna. It's just impossible because it's backed by the actual BCH, and that can always just get liquidated and sold on the market. And BCH has an actual genuine market price, not the one that's pumped up by this burn and mint Ponzi, basically. So if we can get that out, and it sounds like maybe in Q3, it was kind of maybe Q3 or Q4 this year. If that comes out and it gets integrated in wallets, this is all going to take a while, right? It might not be until later this year, or maybe even late next year by the time all these different pieces of the ecosystem click together. But once they do, just the ability for other coins to just copy or compete with these on these metrics is going to be absolutely nothing. So yeah, I just want to get your take on something. Did you listen to any of this Twitter space or?
Yeah, I listened to a little bit. I didn't listen to the full hour. I was traveling when it came out, and so I was in the airport listening to it. No, it's very uplifting to see all these people from around the world putting their heart and soul and going out there and trying to spread the good of blockchain to other people. And Sonny going over and being in India, I think India is a huge market that can really benefit from Bitcoin. So to see them out there doing it, just listening to all of them, having a good time doing it, it's awesome. So I definitely need to be listening. I'm going to listen to more of them. But no, I think this is definitely something that is needed in the community, putting all the main players together to really, hash things out, to see how they're doing, see that the problems that they're facing, because that's how we move forward. It was just one guy leading the pack. We're not really decentralized at that point. And so having all these people come together and trying different things, just we don't have one answer. And that's the beautiful thing about it. We're able to take people's feedback from around the world and make a better product. And that's the whole point. We're not trying to pump the price up and get everybody on board so we can all cash out. We really want to spread this around to other people. And so seeing the BCH hangout that we're doing, I think it's a beautiful thing, and we need to keep doing it and do more of them because that's how we move forward as a community.
Yeah, I think I can certainly feel that morale is rising in the community as well too, because things have just gone on long enough now that the Bitcoin Cash community is getting down to brass tacks, basically, right? There's not been internal community drama or technical issues or problems or whatever. It just hasn't been happening. And so once you have a long enough period of time where all the people who are just there to bitch and moan about whatever have got bored and left, and you're just left with the people who are actually committed to the idea and who are not going to flake out next week, or they want to make some real change. Once you've just got that core of people, that's really what the whole bear market cycle is about. You get to a point where that's who's left, and then suddenly it starts kicking off because everybody's collaborating and sharing ideas, and momentum and morale has been rising. And I think it's amazing to see. And there might not be a payoff in the short term in terms of the price or in terms of outside media or attention or anything like that, but that hard work day by day is getting results. And yeah, it's amazing to see. And just the fact that Venus Crypto is hosting these spaces has been great. One other point that I wanted to make about the topics that came up, which I found really interesting, was so they had Rolando Bryson, the Minister of Parliament or Member of Parliament in St. Martin, who's been big on BCH and is getting people to use it. And now apparently they're putting ATMs there as well too, that are all branded with Bitcoin Cash. So people on that island are going to just be getting the idea, Bitcoin Cash, it's happening. And if they see people transacting with it in shops and they see the ATMs, it'll be just, that speaks volumes, right? But he made a really interesting point, which I hadn't thought of before, which is he kind of called out El Salvador a bit, because he said, look, they obviously, the BTC people went in and sold them on this and they did it. But he said, look, the other countries haven't copied them. It has now been more than a year. And certainly among those South American countries, it's just like any regional political area. They all know each other and they're all watching what each other are doing and so on and so forth. And so the fact that there hasn't really been any follow-up from neighboring countries to just copy paste those laws in themselves or have their own debates in parliament and maybe tweak it a bit and then do it and whatever. It's just kind of the online hype can't get you over that barrier. That's just, people in power will actually just take a trip across the border or whatever, visit a place, have a look. Okay, it's kind of not working, guys. We're not interested. And that the opposite was happening for him, where he had it going in St. Martin and it is starting to work and things were going great. And so he had some of the other Caribbean leaders and people that he knew and stuff were starting to ask him, what is going on with this? You know, are you putting in laws around legal tender and what's that and whatever, because they just came and looked and they walked around and there was stickers everywhere and they saw some people paying with Bitcoin Cash, and then they asked him or whatever, and he said, yeah, you know, we're creating a new economy, and obviously it's low banking here. I know that, you know that, and this is a fix, and it's working. You can see it with your own eyes. So that kind of network of people who are in those regional areas is just an undervalued point, and one it's obvious, but I hadn't really thought it through before. So I don't know. Is it too harsh to judge the BTC community and say that other South American countries aren't interested because El Salvador is failing, or would they just not be interested even if it was going great?
Well, I mean, great technology will be used out of necessity. And I mean, there's plenty of economies out there that I think could benefit from Bitcoin. And to see that they're not using it, I mean, it'd be naive to think that, you know, Venezuela, Colombia, Guatemala, that these countries that have struggling economies aren't all jumping into Bitcoin if it worked. I mean, if BTC worked for them, they would sign up today. They wouldn't wait till tomorrow. So, I mean, it kind of speaks volumes that El Salvador is not being replicated across, especially South America, Africa. It's just not, because it doesn't work the way it was intended to work. And unfortunately, kind of how I see El Salvador, I mean, you're really playing ball with the president. He's all in on El Salvador, and unfortunately, I think he made the gamble of, let's put our country's money into it for the price to go up, and that's probably what it was sold as. You know, you have some Americans come down there and explain Bitcoin to him, and he's like, okay, you know, if it goes from 30,000 to 1 million, you know, my country is no longer poor, and that's how he sees it. And so it wasn't driven out of necessity, in my opinion. It was driven out of price, of him trying to save his country and boost his economy, by the same mentality that the crypto bros in the States are having, where, you know, price goes up, and that's the only real value that we're playing on. So I think that it really speaks volumes that you don't see these other struggling economies, because there's plenty of other economies out there that could use a peer-to-peer cash system to make it better, to get the government out there. But unfortunately, Bitcoin kind of goes against the grain of a central bank. With a peer-to-peer cash system, you don't need to rely on the central bank as much. And so in turn, you lose the government control. The government no longer has as tight of a hold of the economy as they want. And so with an emerging economy, someone who's trying to, you know, boost their economy and make more money for their people, it's difficult. So unfortunately, I think El Salvador is a gamble made by one man that's now forced this country into a hole. And, you know, he kind of he made his bed and he has to sleep in it now. The price has to go up for him otherwise they lose money. And so it's no longer driven by the utility of the token. It's driven by the price point. And I mean, that's just the flaw of BTC in general.
Yeah, well, because El Salvador is going to be in quite a tragic situation if there was, Nayib Bukele, he took some of the money and he put it into Bitcoin, and there was a lot of fanfare, and the price went up, and it was all hype, and it was going great, and the price was going up, and he was announcing, we're buying more, it's going up, we're buying more, and then but then the market has cooled off and it's crashed.
He's pretty silent now.
He's now in the red. Yeah, he has shut up a little bit. He did do another interview with Peter McCormack, sort of addressing some of that, and Peter said to him, look, what do you say to critics who say you're now in the red and you've lost your country's money? What were you doing? And he says, oh, well, I mean, it's the same thing anybody in crypto can and will say, okay, well, you know, we haven't sold any, we've still got the exact same amount of Bitcoins as we did there. But where for an individual, you might kind of be in the position of, I'll just sit there and ride it out. I mean, it's kind of on another level when you're doing about millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars of your entire country's tax funded like money potentially down the drain, not recovering for years, and might not ever recover. I don't know.
Yeah, it's no, it's he took a gamble, and yeah, he's a fiscal responsibility to his country, and so unfortunately, I think this really casts a negative light on crypto as a whole, because if El Salvador doesn't make it out of this, it's going to show the rest of the world, well, is Bitcoin really the answer? That's the unfortunate part of it, is we kind of get grouped into that. When you say crypto, everyone thinks of it as this big old sphere of all these dudes buying coins on the internet. But really, we're all very different. The BCH community versus the BTC community is night and day difference. But what happens in El Salvador, people aren't going to look into that. They're just going to see a failed nation state because of Bitcoin. And so I think it's going to hurt the industry as a whole. But unfortunately, they made that bet, and they have to play it out. They have to see it through.
Yeah. There's no easy outs, definitely from here. Maybe if there was some incredible price rally or whatever, but it's just a bit of a fantasy. It would be nice for them, I suppose, but yeah, it's just taking shortcuts. It's like we YOLO'd all our money in and announced that our country's accepting it, and we're going to build this futuristic space city or whatever. It's like, well, how about just making one of your regular cities good before you worry too much about Bitcoin City? But it was the quick mentality, and it was working great. But it's like anything in life, you take the shortcuts and you end up paying the price one way or another, right?
Yeah, you don't jump from a country like El Salvador, and I don't know what their GDP is, but you don't 10x that overnight because of Bitcoin. And if you do, because that's what they were banking on, you kind of have to look back and think, or look at, what did we do? And you're not producing, or El Salvador is not producing. Yeah, it's not replicable, but you're not producing more. You're not creating more wealth. You're taking wealth from the rest of the world. We're all just on this rock together, and there's only so much money floating around. And so Bitcoin's mentality is, we're going to take money from other people, essentially, by the price going up. More investors as they buy, that's where the price comes from. That's where the money comes from. You bought Bitcoin at 30K and then you sold it at 45K. You didn't create 15K in value. You took 15K from the market. And so it's a flawed logic. And that's what El Salvador is banking on. Is, we're going to take our relatively small economy, we're going to make this gamble on it, and we're going to try and 10x it, 20x it, 100x it, and then reinvest that into our community. But really what you're doing is you're just taking money from the rest of the world and repurposing it into El Salvador. You're not creating something. You haven't fixed the problems in El Salvador. The problems still exist.
Yeah, it's very zero sum. Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of that, so let's talk a bit now about the logistics industry. And we can talk about Bitcoin Cash a little bit, but you've got a bit of free reign to tell us what's going on. I don't know very much about logistics. I know virtually nothing, actually. So you can give us the rundown of how that all works and how crypto might help. And I'm also particularly interested in, it's been mentioned on this show, like supply chains are currently struggling given all the pressures of the global energy market, and inflation is just kicking off, and this is just the machinery underneath that people don't see most of the time. They just go to the shop and their food is there, right? But as that starts to break down, like how bad is this going to be? I don't know. Give us the walkthrough.
Well, the nice thing about logistics, and the reason I got into it, was I wanted a bulletproof market. I wanted a bulletproof your career, essentially. I wanted something that was going to be able to make money through a pandemic, through a war. And I got into logistics in 2017. And so I got in early, and I got in before it was bad. But really what's happening now is we're finding a balance. Inflation is so high, it's hard for carriers and transportation companies to find drivers, because it's purely an exchange you're exchanging value for a service. Somebody gets into a truck and drives that truck. And so what's happening is the rates for those drivers is going through the roof because we have to have those drivers. And so, if I'm putting out, $200 a day for a truck driver, and I get nobody, well, what do? I can't have nobody. I have to pay $250. I have to pay $300 until I fill up my fleet to be able to service my customers. And unfortunately, that then gets passed on to the rest of the consumers, but it doesn't happen in real time. And so what we're seeing now is the rates are going through the roof. It's hard. There's a driver shortage across the entire world, a large one in the United States. And so those prices are going up, but they haven't been passed on fully to the consumers yet. We're still kind of lagging behind because, if a gallon of milk went from $3 to $10 overnight, I mean, you wouldn't sell any milk. And so it lags behind, but that's the first thing that increases because we have to have those drivers. So it's a rough system, but I mean, from the logistics standpoint, I mean, logistics companies are making the most money they've ever made. 2021 was a fantastic year for the logistics industry because of that very reason. I mean, people have to have that stuff on the shelf. And so what do? We don't show up to work and it's too expensive today to run. No, we raise the prices on our customers. We raise the rates for our drivers because we have to have them on the road. And in turn, those are going to get passed on to the consumer at the end of the day. So I think we're really just getting started, unfortunately, with the whole inflation because like the guys I have working for me, I mean, I got truck drivers that are local drivers. They're making $100,000 a year. No college degree, 6 weeks, you can get your CDL. And then, I mean, you can literally go from homeless to, 6 weeks later, making $100K a year. So, to me, that's great for the truck drivers. They're making a ton of money right now because $100K is, I mean, that's a large sum of money. But unfortunately for them, a lot of young guys are getting sucked into the industry. And so by the guise of, hey, I want to make $100,000 because I can't make $100,000 anywhere else. But that's not going to last. If a truck driver is making $100,000 a year, what do you think we're going to have to pay everybody else? Because eventually we are going to reach that threshold where we have enough drivers and we are meeting all the freight. And they still probably be making 120K a year, but that 120K a year is going to go a lot less far than it currently is. So right now those drivers are making a ton of money and the market's good and we're getting new kids off the street. And they just changed the age requirement in the United States from 21 to 18 for a CDL. So you're having these guys that are right out of high school that are banking their careers on this. And a lot of them work for me. And then, they think that they're going to be millionaires the rest of their life. When in reality, all we're doing is we're moving the goalposts further down the road. If, I'm having to pay my guys $100,000 a year to show up to work, I mean, what are we having to pay everybody else? And it's not good. It kind of shows the pickle that we're in. We've almost doubled the rate of what truck drivers are making. So, but not everyone else's salaries is doubled. Not the price of everything is doubled, but eventually it will have to. I mean, just supply and demand of the market. You can't have truck drivers making the most money out of any other industry. All the other industries are going to have to pay more people, and that plays into the labor shortage. People are leaving their jobs because why am I going to show up and bust my ass 5-6 days a week for $50,000? That $50,000 is going a lot less far than it did a couple of years ago. So the market's going to have to find an equilibrium, but unfortunately, not before the prices of everything rise, and employers are going to have to dish out a lot more money. So all these profits that these companies are making, I mean, $100 million is going to go a lot less far than it did a couple of years ago. And so it's the nature of the beast. We've made our bed with the Fed, with them printing all this money. A lot of that money went to these large companies. And so they have all this extra cash on their balance sheets. They look great. But in comparison, I'd much rather have made 50 million 2 or 3 years ago than make 100 million, right now, because not much has changed. The reason that we're making 100 million versus 50 million is not because we're doing twice the amount of work. We're moving the same amount of freight. We're moving with the same number of drivers. The price has just gone up. And so it's kind of misleading to the market, but it shows the market as a whole. We're not in a good spot, and it's a lot worse than 8 or 9% inflation that we're seeing. It's a lot higher than that, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I was gonna dig into that a bit more. So obviously, I mean, it was funny how rapidly things have gone from, I mean, the Bitcoin Cash community or crypto as a whole is, horribly unshocked by this whole state of affairs, right? But it's what, under 2 years ago that it was 2% inflation, moderate. Even if that was underestimated, that was still the rhetoric. Now it's basically, it's 8 or 9% at the low end. What's that happened in under 24 months, certainly. And that's probably still underestimating. I saw an ad on the subway in London on the underground the other day, which was a dating app, and it was, do you want to get married before inflation sets in, kind of an idea. And I was thinking, wow, geez, this is how big the inflation story is getting, right? People's good night, Ryan. People don't have the understanding of all the dynamics, but they're getting the message that inflation is happening, and it's just going to take off like a rocket. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse, and the government's going to blame everything but themselves, and the people are slowly going to understand that the government is the problem. They're not the answer. They are the problem. But it's going to take a lot of pain, unfortunately, before we get there. So if the prices are going up for freight so much already, where's the buffer? Why are the supermarket prices not skyrocketing yet? Is it because the supermarket, for instance, they just haven't adjusted the prices yet? They're thinking maybe these trucking rates will go down again, or what's the holdup? They're burning through their free cash. What's going on?
Well, so like Target has a ton of inventory on hand. And so I don't know what their margins are on certain goods. But I would bet money that their margins are lower today than they were 24 months ago before the pandemic. And so they're absorbing some of that hit. I think that's what we're seeing, is they still have to sell goods. And so back to the price of milk, if it went from $3 to $10 a gallon, they're not going to sell a milk. People are just not going to buy it. So they have to find that equilibrium in the market where, we can raise it to $3.50, we can raise it to $4. They're not making as much money on that. They are raising the price, but they're not making the same margin percentage wise on those items. They still have to sell them though. So in their mind, they rather take a 20% hit on their margin and still be able to sell something, rather than, say the margin on milk was 50%. Well, they rather sell 20% margins or 30% margins than try to maintain that 50%, because they're going to sell a lot less of that product. And so that's where I get into the lag behind. You have the economy as a whole is not going to update in real time, versus the prices of a driver. That's going to update in real time. I have to have somebody show up and go to work. And that's where we get into the spot market, where you're seeing Uber Freight take off, because there's so much money to be made. But that doesn't, just because I had to pay a driver $1,500 a week this week and I only paid them $1,000 last week, that doesn't mean that the price of milk that they're transporting goes up 50% overnight. They're going to absorb that cost in the short term and pass it on to consumers in the long term by raising prices, because it would shock the market. And unfortunately, I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, the prices for workers is going through the roof, but they still have to sell goods, and so they're taking the hit up front. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you look at their earnings, and you look at it looks like they're going up, looks like they're making more money, but in reality they're not. They're actually taking a hit, because it's not the same steady rate of growth. You don't go from 50 million to 100 million and then still, say you made 30 million on that. You're not going to make 60 million on the 100 million anymore. You're going to make 45. And so that's an exponential problem across the industries, that, they're absorbing that cost as they still have to do business. It's just slowly being passed on the consumer. They're taking it, the milk from $3 to $3.50, then to $4, then to $4.50, then to $5. They're not going to jump it overnight, but eventually we'll get there. The Fed
mathematically guaranteed.
Yeah, we're going to go there. The price of milk's not going down; it's going up. in the long term. So it's a bad problem, to be honest. I mean, it's good for my company. We're making good money. The industry is growing, and there's no shortage of work to go around. But at the same time, I see it as an indicator for the market as a whole. We're not in a good spot. I mean, if we're having to pay these rates for people to show up and work, we've got much larger problems as an economy as a whole, that we have to address. And unfortunately, the consumers will have to absorb a lot of the costs long term. Salaries are going to have to go up. Companies have to spend more money on people. And how long does that take to equal out is anybody's guess. I don't know. But it's going to have to equal out at some point.
Yeah. So one thing I think about a little bit is, they say a city starves in 3 days, right? What is your take on that kind of angle to it? Should listeners be genuinely thinking, got to make sure? I mean, people did it in the pandemic, right? They got a bit of canned goods and da 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 da. But is this going to be a gradually and then suddenly and then everything's just going to buckle and stop working? Or is it going to be actually there's a bit of give and things will run along for quite a while and we'll see the political problems and other stuff start up before the whole supply chain infrastructure shuts down? What's your take there?
Well, I mean, I don't think the supply chain infrastructure is going to shut down. It's just going to have to adjust to the new market. I mean, the nice thing about the United States and the economy of the world is people demand goods. And so if, say my company goes out of business, somebody else is going to fill that void. So and kind of a background on me, I work in the automotive transportation industry. So I'm moving car parts from suppliers to automotive plants that then build the cars. If I'm not there to do it, somebody else is doing it. And there's kind of a blank check associated with that. And, if I can't fill my commitments, then essentially they put it out to the spot market, and whatever that costs to move that load, we have to absorb as a company, because we committed to running, X amount of loads per week. And so if we can't do that, somebody in the market will fill that void. So I don't think there's a risk as far as the supermarkets not being stocked. I saw a much larger risk with the pandemic, where you're physically restricting drivers. So like Canada, for example, they required all drivers to be vaccinated. I see that as a much larger threat, because now you're shrinking the pool of workers. You're not expanding it. There's always going to be less people vaccinated. Or there's always going to, what am I trying to say? There's going to be less people in that pool if you make that as a requirement. There's not going to be more people. So I see that as a much larger threat to the supply chain industry. But long term, I don't see there being a threat to the supermarket walls being empty unless there's some kind of other exponential threat to the market that prevents drivers from working. And right now, I mean, we've seen COVID has not wiped out the entire world population. Truck drivers are not dropping left and right. So I don't think there's an immediate threat to that. I see it more of a economical problem, to where you go to the supermarket and you want to buy, your favorite toilet paper, and you just can't afford it anymore. I see that as a much larger threat than there not being the toilet paper there, because somebody's going to fill that need. Somebody's going to produce it. Somebody's going to transport it. But what the cost is going to be, that's the question. So, it's the good news is I don't see us having empty shelves. But the bad news is I see us not being able to afford what's on those shelves.
Man,
without even getting to like things getting worse. Last month I put out a tweet. Within 4 years, for sure, I am paying twice as much for groceries now than I was 4 years ago. So if it's gonna get worse, I'm really not looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean that's where we're headed. There's just so much money floating around, and I mean, to be honest, our workforce is lazy. The pandemic did not do us justice. Everybody wants to work from home. Everybody wants a local job, and I'm fortunate that I've got local drivers. But I mean, it's hard to convince somebody to get into a truck and drive for 3 to 4 weeks at a time for $400 or $500 a week. And so you have to up the price on that, and in turn pass that along to consumers, like we talked about. And it's not good. It's not a good situation because the people that are struggling to pay for groceries now are really going to struggle in the future. I think long term, I mean, everything balances out because if we don't have the money to go buy our groceries, then we demand more from our employers. You have to. I'm not going to just show up to work and work 5 days a week if I can't go to the grocery store and feed my family. I'm going to go find something else to make money. I'm going to start growing crops in my backyard. People are resilient. They're going to figure it out. And companies have to have a workforce. So they're going to be forced to pay more money. And that's kind of where we're getting into is there's 2 openings for every 1 job applicant right now. And so we're going to have to raise the salaries of people so they're going to show up to work. I mean, you can't decrease. And that's kind of that's where I really see the recession hitting is companies are not going to be able to survive that because if they're already were operating on thin margins, they're going to be forced to pay more. And so if you're not able to convince your supplier or whoever is paying you for your services, you're really in a tight spot. And so it's bad. And that's what I see as the real problem. The companies are going to have to pay out more money than they're already paying. We're seeing that right now. And if they can't afford that, then they go out of business, unfortunately.
That's it. We're going to just see, enormous capital destruction, basically, as if we didn't already have some of that with the pandemic and everybody having a shit time for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it's like we're just strapping in for another bigger round of it. We've just got to get humanity out of this situation. And there's just it's like shouting fire in a crowded movie theater. A lot of people are going to get wrecked. Like there's just no way around. Well, and that is what it is.
We as a society, I mean, like we live as kings. We all live as kings. We all have exactly what we want. We go to McDonald's and we tell them exactly what we want on our burger. We go to a restaurant, we order exactly what we want. We go to the grocery store and we buy the brands that we want. I mean, with Uber, you can have food and groceries delivered to anywhere in the United States. You don't even have to leave your home. So I think we've kind of seen almost the peak of our market, where everybody has all their needs met. Everybody has things that they want. And if you look at the past, you look at what our ancestors went through, they didn't have that luxury. They had to make do with what they had. And we're so used to this mentality of, I want the name brand, whatever at the grocery store. And you get an entire population used to that. It's going to be a shock when those prices go through the roof. Now, all of a sudden you got to buy the 1-ply toilet paper instead of the 3-ply. Like people aren't used to that. And that's going to be the real shock, I think, to people, because you're going to have to reassess what you spend your money on. It's not going to be this, we've got extra money, because that's what we were conditioned as with the pandemic. We were waiting on the government to send us another stimulus check, and everybody got used to, the government's going to fill up my bank account. Well, what they don't realize is now everybody's got more money in their pocket, which means, with capitalism, people are going to raise the prices even if they didn't have to. If I can sell a roll of toilet paper for $20, I'm going to, if people buy it. So I'm not going to sell it for less money just to be nice. And so that's the real worry for me is the shock to everybody when they can no longer afford those goods. And I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on the market, a lot of pressure on those companies. So it's going to be interesting to see, but we're all going to have to live through it.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. That
sorry to be the doomsday guy.
at least you're hearing it here on this podcast. Nobody would ever said that this podcast was not giving you the reality of what's going on. I'm not. Yeah, like you said, it's not about pulling the wool over people's eyes. It's just sometimes the bad news. You gotta hear it. You gotta hear the bad news, but. Maybe it'll work out for the better. I'm an optimistic person, but yeah,
I don't see how it does, unfortunately. But I'm optimistic too. We're resilient people. We're resilient creatures. We've built a great society that we all live in, and so I think we make it through this. I just think we make it through it not as we think. We're not going to have the same things that we have. We're not going to be wearing Yeezys on our feet and have North Face jackets. Like, it's going to be people are really going to get hurt, and they're going to. That's really where I see society start to break down. But I could be wrong. But what I'm saying, I mean, if I'm having to pay these truck drivers $100,000 to show up to do work, I mean, that doesn't say a lot for say you have an office job and you're making $50,000. I mean, your salary is going to have to go up, yes, but what you can afford with that money is going to be a lot less than what you could afford a couple of years ago, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but we're all gonna live it. Hopefully Bitcoin Cash is the answer. Hopefully that can provide some economic sanity, at least, to the people who jump on it. And maybe if your money is degrading that fast, maybe a little bit of BCH volatility isn't the worst thing in the world. Maybe that's the lesser of two evils.
Well, I mean, with Bitcoin, we have the control. I mean, who sets the price on things? Like, in the future, if the dollar runs away and it's a new car is $1 million, it's simply an exchange of value for a good, and so you can kind of name your own price with that. So with Bitcoin, you have the ability to control your money. You have the ability to you don't have a bank that's telling you what you can and can't do with it. And so if I want to sell, like say for example, I wanted to undercut the market and sell, I can do that, and I don't have the pressures of the rest of the market by being tied to the dollar. We always think of prices in dollars. We're even comparing Bitcoin Cash and the price of dollars, but I think it's actually a really good thing that Bitcoin Cash has a low relative price point in dollars when the supply of dollars has increased. There's a lot more dollars floating around. And so in theory, that would mean that Bitcoin Cash price would go up, but it hasn't. And so that kind of provides a unique opportunity for us to accumulate. I don't get into the whole hodl mentality, but if you're just looking at the market, if we've doubled the cash supply in the last 5 years and the price of Bitcoin Cash has been cut in half, that means there's a 4x multiple on the value of Bitcoin Cash. And so that, I mean, to people that are listening, it's a great time to start to dollar cost average into it and start setting yourself up, because the coins are yours and you can lock them up and use them for whatever you want and exchange it for whatever you want. So I think it's actually a good thing for our community. It's a bad thing for everybody else, but that's the beauty of the blockchain. It's the beauty of Bitcoin being peer-to-peer electronic cash.
Trying to get as many people on the lifeboats as we can. Speaking of, community comment of the week comes from the least community member of Bitcoin Cash ever, Adam Back, who was getting in the mix on Twitter yesterday. Sonny made a post which was about, I've just onboarded a new travel agent. Adam Back, who is the Blockstream, I don't know if he's the CEO, I think, or anyway, he's one of the big wigs, one of the big banker shills, and one of the key cruxes of the whole Bitcoin core machine, came in with the take, "It's dead, fellas, just give it up," laughing face emoji. And it's just unreal that he is replying to a post of real adoption taking place. And he's trying to, it's just what level of delusion is this? That is he trying to convince himself? Is he hoping that we are going to listen? Like what is Sonny going to be doing? He's going to be sitting there in St. Martin's with the person that is paying the thing, and he's going to check his phone and look on Twitter. Adam Back says this isn't working. He's just going to say to the lady at the shop, "Sorry, shut it all down. I was just joking about all this. Like, I give up. It's not real." We go, and I don't know. He hit back with, Sonny said, "We totally agree with you. Yes, BTC is dead. We gave up on it. BCH it is. Sleep well, and next time come with a better comment." I love that.
That's a great comment.
Sleep well, and next time come with a better comment, because it's just boring, and it's been 5 years. It's all started in 2017. It's 2022 now. He's still coming to tell us, guys, it's over. He's been telling us for 5 years that it's over, but he's still telling us. Like, it's beyond.
Well,
beyond
I mean,
parody.
shout out to
I don't know.
Adam. He's putting the spotlight on us, and any spotlight's good, any press is good when you have the utility that we have. So no, I mean, absolutely, Adam. I keep on tweeting about us, keep on mentioning us, keep on giving us that spotlight, because you're not doing yourself any favors by doing that. You're not increasing the market share of BTC by shitting on BCH. If anything, you're going to increase the adoption of BCH, and people are going to start looking into BCH. So no, keep it up, Adam. Keep it coming.
It's just moth to a flame. It's just he can't restrain. Surely he would be able to logically think through, to have some self-control basically, and understand that he's just giving us free airtime. He's a massive Twitter account. He's got 450,000 followers or whatever, and so if he's in there raging away about this with his laughing emoji, he's not the one laughing. We are definitely the ones laughing in this scenario, I think. But it's all pretty feeble and pathetic once it's just come down to give up, guys. It's over. It's over. It's over, right? You know it's over. Like,
take my word for it.
That's right. Adam Back will be the leading indicator for Bitcoin Cash adoption. The more tweets he has, clearly the more rustling we are becoming. And on a similar theme, meme of the week this week is actually me. I think this is the first time I've ever done this. It's a bit self-indulgent, but I had to put it in there. This one got started with good old Bennett Tomlin, who is a bit of a secret, cheeky, big blocker, no coiner, I don't know, just general disruptor of the markets. And so he posted simple proof that Bitcoin does not scale trustlessly to a global size. 1, using scaling solutions like Lightning trustlessly requires regular base layer transactions. 2, there's nowhere near enough space for everyone to do that, which is essentially just Bitcoin Cash in 2 lines. But I guess coming out of the mouth of the No Coiner Crypto Critic podcast, it's a bit more disturbing to the Bitcoiners. So the ripples of the Twitter universe carried all the way out to Peter McCormack, who decided he would get involved, and he said many ardent Bitcoin supporters agree that the block size might increase in the future, just when necessary. Now, this is obviously like delusional. When is that gonna what? So I made this meme, one of my favorite meme formats, which is The Rock in, I think it's called The Race to Witch Mountain or something. I've never seen this movie, but The Rock always says something, and then there's just this blonde, like, teenage girl in the car behind him that tells him some shocking fact that just wrecks his worldview, and then he has the best "I'm shocked" expression as he realizes, wait, what? I didn't know that. So I made that. So The Rock says, ardent Bitcoin supporters will raise the block size when necessary. And the teenage girl just says, they already did. And he's just like, wait, what? What? And that just summed it all up in that one. Like, that's what people who think BTC is going to raise the block size. No, they never are. The Bitcoin community already did it. It already happened. BCH is the Bitcoin with the bigger blocks. Like, I don't know how or when he thinks he's going to just collect up a few of his mates and try and fork Bitcoin and raise the block size, but that we've had a war over it. It was called the block size, but it went for over 2 years, and at the end of the day, we couldn't get it done. So how he thinks that after 5 years of everyone putting laser eyes on their profile that they're going to get excited about that, it's just delusional. But I don't know. The frog's just cooked at this point. What are they going to do?
Yeah, no, and you can't have this whole discussion that we had from 2015 to 2017, and then immediately flip the switch back around, because I really think that at the core of it, Bitcoin was capped for a reason. it wasn't this whole, we're scared of, the hardware, we're scared of the block size being too big and not being able to be used and people can't run nodes. No, I mean, they wanted to create a fee market, and they won't admit to that. Some of them might.
Well, they did admit to it for a while, yeah.
But it's hard to come out and say, we want transactions to be $5 a pop. So it's, yeah, I don't know, it's just kind of sad that we have this kind of manipulation going on, because if they do raise the block size, or they try to propose it, I mean, it's not going to be good, because this whole discussion is going to come up again. And I think it hurts the space as a whole. I mean, continue to do your thing, Bitcoin, BTC, and do your whole Lightning layer too. And, we'll see how that plays out, and then let the best man win. But, we've made our bets, and I'm on the big block size. And I think people will start to join our cause when they see the issues that the Lightning network has, the whole layer 1 capped block size has. So, they made their bed, and it's just kind of funny that now we're having this discussion again.
It never stops. It's
never stops.
Going around in circles. It's over. Adam back. You've got Adam back saying it's over, guys, and then in the very thread the day before, you've got Peter McCormick saying, no, we'll do block size increases. Still, it's like it's a circus. Just the popcorn would just be immense if there was ever any substantial minority of the Bitcoin BTC community that's decided they wanted to raise the block. Where are those people? They don't exist. Who is Peter McCoy? Just when necessary. What is this? It's like I can't think of the word for it now. But when you just set a date that is so far in the future, like, oh, we're going to be completely sustainable by 2100 or something, and the whole point is it's complete nonsense. But you've just put a vague thing in the future, because then that's what you can point to and just fob people off. It just, I should sell popcorn on BCH. Yeah, Bitcoin Jason, you definitely should. We need that BCH popcorn. That would be a classic. All right, that's it for meme of the week then. So final segment, as always, is the message to the community. So what does the Bitcoin Cash community need to hear?
I think we need to stick to our guns. We need to keep on focusing on adoption, and honestly, just staying positive overall. I mean, getting into this mudslinging war between BTC and BCH, and I'm not. I'm definitely at fault to some of that, but we have to be positive. We have to welcome people in. We have to focus on what's important, and what's important is getting this technology into the hands of people around the world, showing them the benefits of it. And doing that in a positive light, because nobody likes somebody that comes in and just starts bashing everything else that they knew. Like, everybody's heard of Bitcoin at this point. If you just come in and say, this is wrong and this is right, that's not how you win people over. By showing people the fundamentals and what blockchain can do for their business, what it can do for your personal life, that's how you win people over. And that's what led me to be part of this community, was the openness that people are willing to have discussions. I mean, I would go out and post the questions that I had onto the community and let people have feedback, whether it was positive or negative. And so we need to continue to have those discussions. If people have questions about the network and questions about the community, speak up and ask them. And if you don't agree with it, don't shoot them down. Just explain, why you have your own personal views on it. You don't win a war by turning everybody else against you. You win a war by bringing people on in a positive manner and getting them behind your cause. And we have a great cause. We have the great fundamentals to back it up. We don't need to shit on everybody else to win. We just need to have the opportunity to explain how this technology works and why it's beneficial, and we'll win. And that's why long term, I think Bitcoin Cash is the future, is the global reserve currency of the world, like you say, because we have the technology. We don't need to engage in the meme wars. We don't need to engage in mudslinging. We just need to stick to our guns, stay positive, keep pushing the technology out to other people, and let them make their own decision. If they choose not to use it, so be it. That doesn't make them any less of a person, doesn't make them a good person or a bad person. You have the freedom to make the choices of yourself. But I think long term, people will see the value, and then we're going to continue to grow based off that.
Yep, that's it. Simple. Just stay positive and keep doing work, because it seems like it's starting to work, and that's something that I really want to just reinforce to everyone. Just the morale is rising and the momentum is rising, because it's been a hard grind for the community for a few years, but we're starting to break through. It's starting to happen. That NASDAQ article and everything. All right, that'll do it for the show then. Final slide. Thank you very much to the donators, as always. You're the bomb. Thanks to Ricky, my one patron. Start guide, FAQs, links, and all that at bitcoincashpodcast.com. And shout outs. Do you have a shout out, Nick?
I mean, really all the adopters and the people that are pushing merchant onboarding. Sonny doing his thing in India, Ryan in Florida, Roger in the Caribbean. I mean, and there's a lot more than just those people that I mentioned. So everybody that's out there pushing, just putting the technology in other people's hands. I mean, this is why our community is continuing to be successful. If we sat on our hands like the BTC community is doing and just kind of banking on the price continuing to go up, that's not how we build a great community. So, shout out to everybody that's doing that. Keep it up. I definitely want to get myself more involved in that. So, you guys are the ones laying the groundwork for the rest of the community, and it's good to see people, the Bitcoin Cash hangout, everybody getting together and having feedback. So, shout out to everybody that's doing that. You guys are putting in the hard work, and keep it up.
Absolutely. Jet, any shout outs this week?
I do, which I feel like isn't too common, but this one's a special one because it's an extension from having Ryan and Mark on and me complaining about Sheath Underwear not accepting Bitcoin Cash. The madman Ryan got them to do it. Just last week, I got 6 new pairs. So Sheath Underwear and Ryan, 10 out of 10. I'm so excited for them.
There you go. Head over there. Sheath Underwear and paying BCH. And my shout out goes to Jenny, who I had on the show a couple of weeks ago, because she had this party and I went there and I chatted crypto with a bunch of people, and it was just a great time. So happy birthday to her, and thanks, because I really enjoyed coming along to that, and I don't know, she might listen to this show as well too. That'll do it. Thank you, everyone. Until next time.
Thanks, guys.
The greatest story the world has ever known. The rise and rise of Bitcoin. 2022.
A single chance for the world, a single moment in time. Bankers captures all, our cryptocurrency flies, gets to decide. Phoenix fly from the flame, Bitcoin BCH, forever changing the game.
An underdog story everyone trying to deny. Bitcoin revolution, crypto trade on the rise. Then they stole our brand name and tried to push us aside, cause they said it was over, that we'd never survive. Maybe there was a world that was the end of the ride, but this kind of hero's journey is refusing to die. So we picked up the shovels and headed back to the mine. Started over from scratch, finding fresh dynamite. Flipping over the board, drew up fresh battle lines. Set the difficulty right and forked a couple more times. Budgets got slashed with prices on the decline, while the faithless gave up, but the project survived. An unstoppable will kept the blockchain alive, and community grit simply arrested the slide. Suffered plenty of hate from doubters on the sidelines. Drew on passionate drive where strength comes from inside. So this is your notice, written down in these rhymes. You can stick with your bank, or you can move with the times. Join us now or later on, cause I really don't mind. If you can't see it happening, must be myopically blind. Your fake money melts, that's infinite supply. So we're going to rule, that's cryptographically signed. Fuck your institution banks, we'll fund it all on our dime. It's not a matter of price, it's just a matter of pride.
A single chance for the world, a single moment in time. Bankers captures all, our cryptocurrency flies, gets to decide. Phoenix